Hey y'all, ghost story about the old house that I lived in. So one night, my husband and I are asleep. The whole house is asleep. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And I wake up to something like tapping my arm. Courtney, Courtney. And it was like urgent. And I honestly thought it was my husband, like thinking that someone was in the house, or he heard something that, was kind of alarming, and he was trying to be quiet, but like wake me up, like hurry up. So I sat straight up in bed, like what's going on? And I look over and he's passed out cold. And I'm like, what? Hey, what? And he's not answering. And I'm like, Luke, he's not saying anything. So I start shaking him. I'm like, hey, what? He's like, what are you talking to? Who are you talking to? I'm like, I'm talking to you. What did you need? And at this point, I'm thinking, like, maybe he was talking in his sleep, but he was so passed out cold, he wasn't even to that lucid state yet. Like, he was deep in REM, right? And he's like, Courtney, I didn't say anything. Like, what are you doing? And it just, like, took over. Like, I immediately knew that was something not of this world. Now, this was, okay, before I knew that I can talk back to these things, So I don't know what it was. I don't know who it was. But it was crazy. And I don't know what was in my house. What do you think? It was in that moment, that night, where I was like, I need help. I need like real help. Not from a psychologist, not from a psychiatrist, not like medical help. I need to get in touch with a medium, or I am going to be admitted at some point to the nut house and rule that ish like a kingdom, like the queen of a kingdom. And that's not the place that I want to make my kingdom, right? No. So anyway, I sought out mediumship classes and voila, things are normal now. It's a gift. Who knew? Anyways, that's the story. Go have a wonderful Tuesday. Mwah. Love you.
Now, I have had a lot of scary things happen to me, but I do think this may take the cake for the scariest. So this happened probably a little over a week ago. My husband and I come home really late. I think we went to see a movie or something. And something about our house is we always keep our bedroom doors shut so the pets can't get in here if we're not in the room. And that is because we have breakable things, we have altars with food on them. We just need to be able to watch the animals if they're in here. So I think I go to the bathroom and my husband goes into the bedroom first and he opens up the door and he notices that on my altar specifically, well, not my altar, it's like our working altar, we both use it, there's a lot of things knocked off of it and shattered. So he's automatically looking around for a cat that had to be in here that did this. He's like, okay, I guess they ran out or whatever. He comes to get me and he's like, hey, did you happen to leave a cat in here? And I was like, absolutely not. Because I am super careful with that. So he goes over to the altar, he's trying to clean things up, and that is when I hear, when did you get a fake snake for the altar? And I was like, I didn't. Couldn't be me. And he said, oh, there's a snake in here. The snake was not small by any means, so we didn't know what kind of snake it was. I am not a snake connoisseur. I can't look at it and figure out what it is. It was midnight, so we called 911. We did. Looking back, we probably should have just called like the local police department, but we did call 911 because what if it's poisonous? We have pets. The snake did not want to leave. It took 3 cops to get it out. Here's just a little bit of footage. They didn't hurt the snake at all. They took him over to the woods, got him out after they got him in the trash can. But, no. Give me a ghost all day long. I'm good on the black snakes. Thanks.
This is one of the only ghost stories I have, and it still sends shivers down my spine to this day. This was around 2018. I had just recently gotten a new car, and I wanted to take that little car absolutely everywhere that I could. This meant desert, beaches, mountains, And on this particular night, I had asked my friend and my partner if they wanted to go with me into the Angeles National Forest, as deep as we possibly could. At the time, I was living with my family, so I had a curfew, but I continuously chose to ignore it. And on this particular night, I honestly wish I hadn't, because what we saw was something that I'll never be able to explain. Now, I've heard of stories and urban legends about things that have happened up in the Angeles National Forest, but we decided to go anyways, and we get about maybe 45 minutes to an hour into the drive. And at this point, if you've been deep enough into the Angeles National Forest, you know that you start to lose cell service. We reach a point where you have the option to either turn back or go directly into a path that would take you into Wrightwood. But unfortunately, during that time, it was a rainy season. I think there was a lot of flash flooding or something like that. Regardless, that road was blocked off by this giant, it wasn't a giant gate, but it was like a triangle-shaped gate. It was, I don't know what they call them, but a little gate right here that's blocking people from entering that road. And keep in mind, it's pitch black at night. My headlights are the only thing shining. And I decide to move right up to it, and I realize that it's closed off, so I'm like, okay, we can't keep going this way. So as I start to make the U-turn, I notice that behind this little pillar over here, you can't, my finger's not going to reach it, but over there at the end, I see a man dressed in all brown standing right behind that pillar. And I don't think anything of it because I'm like, okay, weirdos are up here, whatever. But then I look at his face, and I realize the man has no facial features whatsoever. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. It is just a figure standing there, dressed in all brown, with nothing on his face. Nothing. But I stayed calm because I did not want to freak out my friend that was sitting in the passenger seat and my partner who was in the back seat. So I continue to make the U-turn, and we get probably 30 minutes down the mountain. Around that time that we're 30 minutes down the mountain, my friend in the passenger seat, she says, "Hey, I didn't want to scare anyone, but did you guys see what I saw up at the gate?" And I was like, "What did you see?" And she tells me that she saw a man dressed in all brown, and he had no face. And at that point, I almost lost it, but I had to stay calm because I was still driving. I was like, no way, I can't believe you saw that too. I thought I was the only one that saw it, and I thought I was, crazy. I thought maybe we were just sleep deprived. But no, she saw the man with no face as well. But after that point, or after that event, I never went back up that mountain. And I had gone up there pretty consistently, but that was probably the last time I ever went. And I would probably never go back up there again that late at night. So, and if you have been on this path or been into the Angeles National Forest and you've seen anything weird, please do let me know, because I'm genuinely curious to hear if anyone has had a similar story.
This is one of the scariest stories I've ever read. Most of my dreams are lucid dreams. I don't know why, but I always know when I'm dreaming and can for the most part do what I want to. I act like myself, can make decisions, but can't control the scenario or setting. I always remember my dreams very well. When I was much younger, I was asleep in my room in the basement with a small window and a large mirror standing in the corner of my room. I started a lucid dream. I sat up from my bed in my dream and saw my body asleep in the bed. I walked outside into the backyard and looked into my small window into my room. I saw my body in bed just like before, but there was a shadow figure standing in my room watching me. I waited and watched. The shadow figure pulled my blankets off of me and started slowly dragging me out of the bed and toward the large mirror in the corner of my room. I saw the shadow figure start to step into the mirror like it was a portal, trying to drag my limp body through it as well. I panicked and ran inside and back into my room to stop him. When I got in the room, the shadow figure dropped my body and vanished into the mirror, and then I woke up. I was not in my bed. I woke up on the floor in front of my mirror in the exact position the shadow figure left me in. I've always been afraid to have another experience like that. I genuinely don't know what you do in a situation like that. That is literally the scariest thing I've ever read. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts, so please comment them down below. And of course, if you have a story that you would like me to share, feel free to DM me.
If you walked into your living room and you saw a chair out of place, you'd probably think somebody broke in, right? Now imagine calling the police and them not even being able to figure out what happened. And it didn't stop at moving furniture. It got physical. This is the story of what people now call the St. Catherine's poltergeist. And unlike normal ghost stories that happened in the 1800s, this happened recently. We're talking like 2019 to 2021. Phones, cameras, police reports, real-time fear. It started small. The family started noticing things that just didn't add up. Lights flickering, devices turning off by themselves, and footsteps when no one was home. At first, they brushed it off. Old house, bad wiring, just normal things. But then, the noises got even louder and more aggressive. We're talking banging on the wall, footsteps moving from room to room, and doors slamming shut. And here's the part that made it different. They weren't the only ones hearing it. Visitors would hear it too. So they did what anyone would do. They set up cameras. And this is where things take a turn, because what they captured was not normal. Objects shifting across rooms, chairs moving when no one is around touching it, doors closing on their own, and not just a normal close, but like a slam right behind you. We're talking clear movements on video in an empty room. At this point, the family really thought someone has to be messing with us, so they called the cops multiple times. They checked for break-ins, trespassers, anything that could explain it at all. But they found nothing. No forced entry, no hidden person, no signs of a prank. Just a house where things were happening and no one could explain why. And then it got worse. It stopped being just noise. The family claims that objects were thrown near them. They felt pressure, like someone was touching them. One other person woke up with scratches that weren't there before they went to bed. And the scariest part, it didn't happen all the time. Just enough to make them constantly on edge. Imagine sleeping in a house like that, not knowing when something's gonna happen. That's what makes this case so unsettling. There's no clear pattern, no warning, just random movements when something isn't right. And the more attention they gave to it, it seemed to become more active. Almost like it knew it was being watched. Eventually, the activity slowed down. No big conclusions, no official answer, no explanation. Just a family with a lot of footage, experiences, and a lot of questions. So the real question is, was it something paranormal? Or is there an explanation that we just haven't figured out yet? Because whatever was happening in that house, it was real enough for them to call for help. Would you stay in this house? Or are you leaving the moment a chair moves?
Alright, as a huge horror junkie and story consumer, we're done with the Appalachian stories. You're done. You're cut off. No more. We're done. We've been done. They weren't scary. They never were scary. I get it, feral people. But you ever been to Florida? I mean, step outside of the Disney bubble. I urge you, as a Floridian myself, I am one of the feral people here. Step outside of the Disney bubble. You know, Orlando, Miami. I went to rehab here. That shit just ain't scary. Appalachian. And suddenly every single scary story now is about, it takes place in Appalachia. There's like 2 of you there. So how is every single true scary story now take place on Appalachia? Right? And I feel bad for y'all. Everyone's like, well, if you hear a fart, no, you didn't. You guys have to turn your lights off by 6. You can't answer the door. You can't look out your windows. It honestly sounds like hell. Why don't you guys move? Like, what the fuck is the point of being there? The Appalachian stories aren't scary. Okay? To say the least. The feral people, they don't scare me. The monsters, they don't scare me. Give me a story in the city. Ooh. That's a thought? Ooh. That's spooky. Think about it. There's people around you, right? Tons of people around you. And you're experiencing something that, number one, other people might not be able to see, or number two, people don't, here's the scariest part, people don't care to help you. That's scary. That's fucking scary. Hello? Hello? Or something more people have a chance of being exposed to. Because I'm safe from Appalachia. Devin, Mark's safe from Appalachia. I'm in fucking Florida, like I said. So I'm fine from Appalachia over here, but talk about a city. I'm a city girl. You know? Tell me a scary story about a city, and then we'll talk. But the Appalachia stories they gotta quit. They're done. They're tired. Give them to God. It's over. The gig is up.
I'm a funeral director's wife, and this is our paranormal ghost story number 2. So one night, my husband got up to go to the bathroom, and he was standing next to my side of the bed once he was done, and standing there for a long time. And so I rolled over, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he looked at me, and he's like, "I'm looking at the baby." And I was like, "What are you talking about? The baby's not here. The baby's at my mom's house. She's not here tonight." And he like rubbed his eyes and was looking, and he was like, "No, there was a baby laying there looking at the monitor." And I was like, "You're going crazy. No, there's no way." So he went back to bed and was like real confused. And the next morning we talked about it a little bit more, and he had told me that the reason why he was looking at the monitor so intently and had been standing there for a while was because he could see a baby laying in the crib looking at the monitor, but didn't look like our baby. You could tell it was a different baby. And that's why he was looking at it so weird, is because he's like, "That's not her. Like, that's weird." So a couple days later, after that had happened, we didn't talk about it with anybody, but a couple days later, after that happened, my mom used to come here and watch our baby. And she had laid our baby down for a nap. And she was sitting on the couch, and she could see down the hallway. And down the hallway, she had seen a baby wearing red pajamas with white polka dots. And later, to come find out, my husband had said also the baby that was laying in the monitor was wearing polka dotted pajamas. And I was like, that's kind of strange. Go on, a couple weeks later, we had also seen where our baby was sleeping in the crib. On one side of the crib, she was laying there, and on the other side, in the corner, there was a baby sitting there in polka dot pajamas once again. So this baby had been around several times in our house. Around that time, my husband did take care of a child around that same age. So I don't know if it had came home with him. But yeah, very strange. Very clear. Like, you could totally see that was red pajamas with white polka dots, my mom. And then in the monitor, you could tell it was wearing polka dot pajamas. So kind of freaked my husband out. Standing next to my bed, really looking at it, so confused. But yeah, that's our second story. We do have a couple more, but I'll kind of spread them out. So that is it. If you want to leave a comment or any questions about funeral directing or anything, and give us a like, give us a follow, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
The first demon I ever saw was living under the baptistry at my parents' church, and everyone told me it was God telling me not to be that way. Hey there, welcome back to Pink Hair Ain't Scared. I'm Marge, your spooky drag storyteller. Let's dive in to another scary story. Our church was old even then. Painted white walls outside, stained glass that was a little cloudy, red carpet that was faded and worn flat down the center aisle. The hymnals always smelled like they'd been left in a basement. The fellowship hall downstairs smelled like coffee, bleach, mildew, and green beans. I was maybe 12, old enough to know that I was different, but not old enough to say how. Just that people at church already looked at me too long. The boys could be loud and rough and stupid, and that was normal. If I crossed my legs wrong or talked with my hands too much, suddenly the deacons needed to pray over me. One Sunday, after evening service, my mom sent me downstairs to get more paper cups from the fellowship hall kitchen. Nobody liked going down there alone. The basement lights were those long, buzzing fluorescent ones, but only about half of them worked. Past the kitchen, there was a little back hallway that led to the furnace room, a storage closet, and the stairs up behind the baptistry. That part always smelled the worst, like wet wood and dust. I heard something moving up there. It sounded heavy and slow, like somebody kneeling and then standing. I remember thinking one of the deacons was up there, draining the baptistry. I went up the little side steps and pushed open the small door. The room behind the baptistry was barely a room, more like a crawl space with pipes. The wood beams were black, covered in mildew. There was insulation hanging down in strips, and there was something there, not in the tank itself, but under it, curled in the dark space beneath the baptistry, where there should not have been room for anything bigger than a toolbox. At first, I thought it was a person folded up wrong. Then it lifted its head. It had skin like soaked paper, gray but shiny in places, like it had just been pulled from a creek. No hair, eyes too small and too far apart, reflecting the light. Its mouth was open, stretched so wide I could see the gums all the way back, but the teeth weren't human teeth. They were thin, crowded together, and jagged like shards and splinters of bone jammed into the gums. It was smiling at me. I know how stupid this sounds, but it was smiling exactly the way church people smiled when they were about to say something cruel really gently. Its arms were long, one hand pressed flat to the wood over its head, and the fingers kept flexing, slow and careful, like it was feeling the vibrations of people walking in the sanctuary above us. Then it spoke, not too loud, almost kindly. It said, in my dad's voice, "There you are." I ran so hard I hit the kitchen doorway with my shoulder and dropped cups everywhere. I was screaming, full panic. My parents and half the church came downstairs, and of course there was nothing there. My dad whipped open the door behind the baptistry and turned on the light like he was proving a point. My mother dragged me outside and made me stop carrying on. She said there are no demons in a church because demons cannot live in God's house. My father said Satan can put ideas into a child's head, especially a rebellious one. Then he asked me, right there in the parking lot, what I'd been feeling convicted about. That's the part I never got over. Not that they didn't believe me, that they believed me just enough to make it my fault. We never left that church. I was in that building for 8 more years. Every revival, every Easter pageant, every youth group lock-in. I never went near those back stairs again. But sometimes during altar call, I could hear water moving in the baptistry when it was empty. I'm 32 now. My parents still go there. They still say I was dramatic. They still say no evil thing could dwell in a sanctuary. Last month my mom mailed me a bunch of old photos that she found while cleaning out the fellowship hall closet. At the bottom was a picture from my baptism. I'm in the water at 12 years old, eyes red from crying, my father's hand on my back. And under the surface, just behind my legs, there's a face looking up at the camera, smiling with all those teeth. Do you have a scary story you'd like to send in? My email is down below. Hope to hear from you soon, and stay tuned for another scary story.
Camped out at a campsite that is known for the devil appearing, and I swear we're never going back. This story comes in from a listener. Let's dive in. Last October, my friends and I, there were 3 of us, we decided we were going to go camping. We went to this place in North Carolina that's called Devil's Tramping Ground. If you've never heard of it, it's this place out in the woods that is a perfect circle. And legends say that the devil circles around there every night, plotting how he's going to ruin the world. I thought it was just a local legend, but after we got there, things just felt weird, like oddly quiet. I swear I didn't hear any bugs or crickets, nothing. One of my friends even pointed out that the woods surrounding us seemed very quiet too. After midnight, we started hearing footsteps all around us. Crunch, crunch, crunch. At first we thought it was just another camper and they were messing around with us, but every time we unzipped our tent, there was no one around. Then it stopped completely, and my friend yelled, "Do you guys smell smoke?" And that was weird because, like, our campfire, it went out a while back. So we open up the tent again, look around, there's no fire in sight. And at that exact moment, my friend said, "Someone's calling me," whispering her name, not yelling, whispering her name. And it kept sounding like it was coming right outside the tent. Again, there was no one there. There was nothing in sight. And then around 3 a.m., I opened the tent and looked towards the clearing of the woods, and I swear I saw a dark figure standing there. The second I noticed it, my phone died, like completely dead. And moments ago, it was at 40%. Then all at once, we heard footsteps running around our tent. Running. And not just one set, there was multiple. We decided to pack up before the sunrise even happened because at that point we were done. And then the crazy part is the next morning my friend checked her phone and she was looking through the photos we had taken, and every single photo had some kind of blur to it, and there was always a circle on it. And before any of you come at me with, "Oh, it was edited," no. My friend was so scared by it, she immediately deleted them. I still don't know if there was someone out there messing with us that night or if it was something paranormal, but I do know we're never going back to the Devil's Tramping Grounds again. Thank you for sending me this story. Y'all, Devil's Tramping Ground is not that far from me. It's only about 2 hours at most. And y'all, the local legend does say that that circle is there, and that is where the devil circles around every night, plotting his revenge against the world. There has been a lot of testing done on the soul and everything. Colleges have studied it. This goes back hundreds of years, and nothing will grow there. What do you guys think they saw? Was it paranormal? Was someone just messing with them? But then how do you explain the pictures? I don't know. Leave it in the comments. And guys, if you like spooky stories, make sure to follow along. As always, stay strange, stay blessed, share this out, and send me your stories. My email's in the bio.
Ghost stories from my Appalachian family. Tonight, it's going to be my younger brother telling his spookiest ghost story that he remembers of us growing up in Appalachia in Tennessee.
This is the story of when I was 14 years old, and I had went to spend the night at my grandma's in the old Appalachian home that my very own brother has talked about on this channel before. I was sleeping in the guest bedroom, and there's a picture on the wall of this old relative that's black and white, and the photos from like 1910s. And the one night I was sleeping in there, and I kid you not, she came out of the picture frame, and she was in black and white, and the picture frame is just her head, but I could see her whole body. And she told me to come on, that there was a lot of people who wanted to see me in the kitchen, and she took me out of the room and led me to the kitchen, and then sitting around the kitchen table was a bunch of my old relatives who are in black and white that I guess subconsciously I'd seen them before in pictures and stuff, and they were all in black and white, and they were sitting there talking, having conversations, and she just led me in there, and it was the creepiest thing, but the kind of a good thing if you think about it, but it was very creepy.
Do you think one day in the future, if another kid stays in that room and that dream happens, you'll be one of the people sitting at the table?
Could be.
This has been a family ghost story with my younger brother. If you want to hear more of my family's Appalachian ghost stories, follow the podcast. It's called Matt, M-A-T-T, from Nomads. You can find the link to the podcast in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been my brother, Luke.
Okay. Oh, I'm not ready. I heard you started. I'm not ready. Stop. I heard you.
I grew up in a haunted house with a creepy neighbor across the street. My parents bought the house in 1996, 2 years before I was born. It was a cute single-level ranch-style home built in 1954 with a huge 3-level backyard. It all started when my parents did a walkthrough of the house with the realtor. When they went down into the basement, the first thing the realtor pointed out was a picture on the wall. The picture was of a red barn in a field. She told my parents to never take the picture down or move it if they didn't want things to happen in the house. My parents didn't think anything of it. They loved the house and bought it. They left the picture up where it was the whole time that they owned the house, but things still happened. When I was little, around 3 to 4 years old, I would tell my mom often that I wanted to go outside and play with the little boy in the basement, but his mom wouldn't let him. My mom, of course, would tell me that there's no little boy in the basement, and that was that. The basement had our washer and dryer, a kitchen area that didn't work with a bar table and chairs. There was a half bathroom that also wasn't usable due to plumbing issues, and a huge living room space, and a decent-sized back room. We didn't go into the back room that often. It had some of my dad's workout equipment and holiday storage boxes, so we only ever went in there when we needed to get something out of it, or when my dad would sometimes go in there to work out. But my sisters and I would usually play bartenders in the unusable kitchen area with empty old beer bottles. Nothing unusual happened when we were all in the basement together, but I always remember feeling like something was watching us. Now comes in the creepy neighbor Pete, who lived across the street. He was in his late 70s, early 80s. His wife had passed, so it was just him in the home. Pete would often leave all these bags of canned food in our breezeway on our deep freezer to the left of the front door when you walked in. He did this because he felt for some reason that our parents didn't feed us, which was not true. My sister and I did not look malnourished. My dad and Pete never got along for this reason. My dad felt like he was invading our space by coming into our house unannounced. He did this on a weekly basis, and every week my dad would take those bags and bring them back across the street to Pete's house. Around this time as well, I was still around 3 or 4, and when we would come home from the babysitters, I was in the stage where I never wanted to wear clothes, so I would always run around without clothes on when I was home. One day, Pete came over and knocked on the door, and I answered it, of course, not wearing any clothes. Pete then took me and started walking me down my backyard. The yard went all the way down to a large wooded area. My dad saw out of the window that Pete was taking me down the backyard towards the woods and sent my sister to come get me. She was about 5 or 6 years old at the time herself. I never understood why he didn't come get me himself, but nonetheless, my sister ran down and had to smack him numerous times for him to let me go. I still wonder what would have happened if they didn't notice. A few years went by, and nothing strange really happened in the house. There was always that feeling of being watched no matter where you were, but nothing notable really happened. My dad ended up getting a restraining order against Pete within that time, so he stopped coming over to the house whenever he pleased. But he still liked to come on our side of the road and press my dad's buttons whenever he was out mowing the lawn. One night, there was a really bad thunderstorm, and the next morning, Pete was found dead in the garden behind his house. For some reason, Pete was outside during the storm, and he had a pacemaker, and it stopped working. A month or 2 later, there was a new family that moved into the house. I became friends with the daughter, who was my age, and my parents were talking with her mom one day, and what her mom told my parents was crazy. When they moved into the house, there was no toilet in the bathroom, just a hole in the floor. He had put pennies in each corner of every room, and that's where he would go to the bathroom. And I remember when I went over for the first time, the basement door had at least 8 deadbolt locks on it. He clearly was not mentally well. At this point, my sister and I were old enough to stay home alone and watch ourselves. My sister was 11 or 12, and I was 7 or 8. Our parents left for work early in the mornings before we got up and ready for school, and would get home around 6:30 at night. My sister and I were very responsible at our age. We would get ourselves ready for school in the mornings and made sure every light in the house was off and the door was locked before we went out for the bus. And then we had a key to get in when we got home from school. There were 2 to 3 times within 6 months after Pete's passing that we would arrive home after school and the front door was unlocked, wide open, and all of the lights in the house were on. My sister and I would go to the old couple's house next door, and they would have their son, who was my parents' age, come over and go through the house for us and make sure no one was in there. No one ever was, and nothing was ever out of place or missing. This did end up stopping after 6 months, and things went back to normal as it could have been. That was until my parents decided to separate. This is when things escalated. My dad ended up moving into his girlfriend's house, and my mom was over at her boyfriend's. My oldest sister was over for the weekend. She is my half-sister and lived with her mom majority of the time. She still came over on the weekends after my parents separated and my dad moved out because us girls were all so close. My sister was around 15, 16 years old at this time. Anyways, one night my oldest sister was doing laundry while we were all hanging out in the living room like we always did. My mom had to stop by and bring laundry soap because we ran out. My sister brought the laundry soap to the basement and left it on the dryer. When she went back down to swap her laundry, the new laundry soap was pouring out onto the basement floor. But here's the weirdest part. The seal to the top of the laundry soap was ripped off and looked like it was tossed across the room. It was about 10 feet to the right away from the laundry soap, and the top was carefully unscrewed and laying perfectly intact and upright on the floor in between the laundry soap and the wrapper. That was the first thing in the series of creepy things that started happening. After that, I was always scared to go down into the basement in the mornings by myself whenever I forgot to bring my clean laundry upstairs, which was often. I'd always feel like someone was watching me or right behind me about to reach out and touch me. One morning, when I went into the basement to get my clothes, it felt even creepy. Here's part 2 of I grew up in a haunted house with a creepy neighbor across the street. That morning, I was going through clothes trying to find something to wear. The horse started moving like someone was riding it, and the galloping song it sang started playing, which it should not have been able to do without batteries in it. I grabbed the pile of clothes and ran upstairs. I refused to go in the basement alone after that. One night, a couple of weeks later, I was lying in bed with the lights off watching a movie trying to go to sleep. My mom and sister were in their rooms already asleep. My bedroom door opened on its own and I saw something small-sized, like a cat, quickly run under my bed. I was terrified, but I told myself I just forgot to latch my door and one of the cats ran in. Of course, my curiosity took over and I stupidly looked under my bed, but there was nothing there. I got up and both cats were asleep on the mat in the kitchen in front of the sink. I ran back to my room and shoved my dresser in front of my door and left the light on all night. Within the same week, something happened to my sister in her room a few nights later. My sister turned her fan on to go to sleep, and when she got into bed, she started hearing someone walking in her closet with what sounded like heavy work boots on. She tried to ignore it, but it continued. She sat up in her bed, and the closet door opened by itself. For visual, her closet door was right next to her bedroom door. There was about 3 to 5 inches separating the two doors. But she managed to muster up the courage and ran out of her bedroom and ran across the hall to our mom's room. She ended up sleeping in our mom's room with her that night and a few nights after that. At this point, my mom had my baby brother, and we needed to buy a house with more room, and thankfully, she put the house on the market. But it didn't stop there. One weekend, my sister and I went to spend the weekend with our dad, and our mom was home getting the house ready to sell. When she was laying down in her room, she saw a man cross her doorway and walk down the hall. She called out to them and checked the house, and no one was there. Later on, she was down in the basement doing some cleaning while waiting for my grandparents to arrive to help her. While she was cleaning, she heard in my grandmother's voice say from the top of the stairs, "Sandy!" And my mom yelled back, "I'm in the basement," and then nothing. My mom figured my grandma just didn't hear her, so she went up the stairs and looked through the door and noticed my grandparents' car wasn't outside. My mom called my grandma, and when she answered, my mom asked why they left. She was just down in the basement. My grandma was confused and told my mom that they were still 10 minutes away. This shook my mom, and she waited by the door until they got there. The next week, after school, I decided to take a shower. My grandma stayed at our house during the day to watch my baby brother from my mom while she worked. So she was always there when we got home from school for an hour or two until my mom got home. I went into the bathroom and got in the shower. My mom just had the bathroom professionally redone, and all we had on the shower was a clear, blurry curtain until we moved in a couple weeks. As I was in the shower, there was a knock on the door, and when the door opened, I said, "Who is it?" My grandma's voice said, "It's Grandma. I need to use the bathroom." Then, through the curtain, I saw her walk to the wall across from the shower and just stand there looking into the shower. Of course, it was a blurry shower curtain, so I couldn't make out her face, but she stood there for a minute and then left. She didn't use the bathroom at all. And when I got out, I asked her about it, and she said she didn't go into the bathroom. When she said that, I was terrified, because if it wasn't her, then what was in the bathroom? The weekend before we moved out was Father's Day weekend. On Father's Day, we went out and spent time with our dad, and then he dropped us off back at the house. It was my sister, her friend, and I at the house. My mom wasn't home yet. My sister and I were sitting in the living room with the door open to the breezeway. Her friend was sitting out there at the top of the basement stairs talking on the phone. All of a sudden, her friend runs into the house screaming and said there's a woman singing in the basement. We all ran out into the backyard. We were so scared. Then my sister and I cracked open the door to the backyard. It was right next to the top of the basement stairs. We stood there for a minute, and surely we heard a woman singing. We couldn't make out what she was singing, but we heard it nonetheless. At that point, I was so ready to move out the following weekend. Nothing happened for the rest of the week, but I was on edge the whole time. We moved out that next weekend, but I have never forgotten all the things that happened in that house. This story was actually my story of the house that I grew up in. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. And of course, if you have a story you would like me to share, feel free to DM me.
So listen to me.
This is how a real curse begins. And inside a church of all places, a young couple brings their baby in for a baptism. The priest, the holy water, a quiet ceremony. Everything seems completely normal, but then suddenly, an old woman appears behind them, very quietly. She stands right next to the mother, almost like she's watching something. The mother politely asks her to step back a little. They're being filmed, but the old woman doesn't react at all. Then the baby suddenly starts crying, and the mother leans closer to calm him down. And at that exact moment, the woman steps even closer and reaches for her hair, almost like she's trying to pull out a strand. The mother looks completely shocked. She turns around and firmly tells the woman to go away. From the outside, it just looks like a strange but harmless moment. But in the comments, many people are saying something much darker. They believe this is how some people try to steal someone's energy, health, or even years of their life. In folk magic, hair is believed to carry powerful energy, and many rituals are said to be based around it. Have you ever had a creepy encounter with someone like this? Or maybe even with a real witch? Write your story in the comments. I read every single one.
If I just spent thousands on a wedding venue and someone crashes it, I'm gonna be pissed. I don't care if it is a ghost. Lip gloss on so I can run this mouth. Now focus. Scary story time, Fright Night Files. A lot of you have just gotten engaged and are planning your weddings, and the last thing you want to have to worry about is a ghost like ruining all of your wedding photos or showing up and scaring the guest. But depending on where you might be wanting to get married, that might be something you want to consider. Believe it or not, that happens more times than you would think. So you might want to make that part of your wedding planning. Is this place haunted? To show you a little bit more about what I mean, I'm going to show you some really popular ghost photos that happened at a wedding. A lot of you may have heard of, I think her name's like Marguerite Monthie or Margaret Monthie. She's a children's author. Well, this was her former home and now it's a wedding venue. And they took this photo, and I'm about to move out of the way and show you what's there, and you let me know what you think this is. This thing, what is that? It's like half of a body. It appears to be like in Victorian clothing. Everyone that was in attendance said no one was dressed like this the entire day. No one. But let me show you what Margaret looked like when she was alive. So this is a portrait someone drew of her, and check this out. Yeah, look at that. How her dress is. Kind of looks a lot like this, don't you think? Yeah, really similar. So this was taken at a hotel right after a wedding on July 15th, 2006. Now, the man said that this thing showed up at his daughter's reception. Yeah, so this is normal. I mean, we all see things like this at weddings, right? No, we don't. What is that thing? You can see arms, ear, head, ribs almost. Don't even say it's like a flare of the camera or something like that, because come on. This thing looks like it's not dressed. This might be my favorite one because this was taken in South Africa and they were all like looking in to watch everything that was going on, but then they took this photo and got this image. Yeah, the man has no head. No one knows who he was. No one was looking at him. He wasn't there when they took the photo, but yet he showed up and he doesn't have a head. And even if he was moving quickly, where is his head? This one was taken in a church. Everything was going fine. No one saw this thing when the photo was taken, but look at that hooded figure. What is going on there? Unusual. Now, a lot of people question this one, and this one could kind of look like it has been altered, but I don't know. What do you guys think? If you want to see more of them, I have more of them. And I also have a podcast episode that is called Till Death Do Us Part, Haunted Venues. And it just came out on Friday, May the 1st. So if you want to know more about specific locations and the stories that go along with them, be sure to check that out.
Did you know that there was a family on a remote Bavarian farm that was murdered by someone who was living in their attic for days? This happened in 1922, and this was the Hinterkaifeck murders. Now, what made the murder especially brutal was that the killer used a very gruesome, like, blunt force farm tool. Now, what made the murder especially brutal is that the killer used something very farm and brutal, like a pickaxe or something. But what really is really fucked up is the family's 2-year-old and the maid were both found killed in their beds. And investigators believe that the killer probably stayed on the farm, in the house, or on the property at least for days after they committed the murders. So while the family's corpses were rotting in their home that the killer was secretly living in, the killer just chilled out there for days. Oh, and it seems like someone was hiding there because there were reports of footsteps secretly leading to the farm, but none leaving it. Oh, and a former maid quit earlier before they were killed because they heard someone in the attic. They heard footsteps up in the attic. There were so many signs that there was someone living in the attic. Oh, and nobody knows who did it. The case has gone unsolved, and the only reason the bodies were found is because the mail started piling up and the family was missing church and the kid didn't show up to school. No one knows who did it, and the investigation was handled very, very poorly, and it's very messy. So if you want to know more of my thoughts about it, you can follow me on Instagram or YouTube, both at Mia Astral. The end.
The scratching is back. I'm going to stay on here for a minute and see if I can capture it. I don't know what the heck that is, and both my sons are not here right now. They should be back soon. I was kind of laying in bed, like almost asleep, and I heard the scratching. And yes, I'm panic laughing. Weird, it was like on the outside wall this time. Not that. That was my fan just turned off. I had the pest control people that like look for the rodents and like possums and everything come out, and they said there was not possums but like groundhogs and different things. They said there was no sign of them. They were here just a few days ago. Just gonna lay here a few minutes and see if we can hear it again. Freaks me out when it happens. And it is all the way dark. I guess it's gone. My sons never hear it, so they think I'm crazy. Not really. I mean, I think they believe me, but they just don't hear it. And they always have earbuds in and stuff too, so that's why. I was just laying here with the TV off. I'm just laying here in the quiet, thinking. And I heard scratching. I guess it's gone. If it comes back, I'll try and record it.